Hello, my name is Josh Lee, and this is my EDL 856 case study for a new role for the parents organization. So the first thing we want to do is summarize what's happening in this case. And in this situation, we have a school where the parents have kind of dissolved the PTA and created a new parent organization without that national support. The principal, the role that I'm playing here, has been previously pretty happy with how the cooperation has gone between the PTA and the school district or the school building, and just wants to kind of continue that. However, in a meeting that's been called between the leaders of this new organization and the principal, it's come out that the parent organization wants a lot more involvement. They want to massively increase their role in the school, being involved in things like curriculum, teacher performance, discipline, and just the overall school situation. So this meeting is taking place at the beginning of the school year. It's in the principal's office where he's called it. I would say the involved parties here, there's obviously direct involvement with the principal and the parents or this parent organization, but this indirectly involves teachers, students, and the school board. There's a lot of people who are affected by the situation. One of the questions that we looked at here is talking about the situations where family and community stakeholders can be helpful. And so just some examples of how you'd want to involve these people. Obviously, great parent organizations can provide lots of volunteers to help make the school function more cleanly. There's been studies, lots of studies done that show that involved parents tend to help increase student test results or student results. So there is an academic gain to be had when parents are involved in their students' education. You can use parents to organize and run school events. And then you can use parents. They're great venues for discussion when you have issues about potential changes, just to have increased stakeholder involvement, involving your parents or other community stakeholders to make sure that they have some say in it, and they can be great sounding boards. So rolling into the next section, when we talk about our legal issues and ethical issues coming up here, this is still very early in this situation. So I would say thus far, there's really been no one harmed. There's been no breach of contract, no legal issues so far. However, obviously, there's a sense of mistrust between the parents and the school. Whether the principal's aware of it or not, parents in doing this are showing they had no trust in how the school was functioning previously. And now the principal is probably going to have a difficult time trusting the parents because all this kind of happened behind his back. He didn't know that was going on. And then there's some serious issues where this could lead to legal problems. For example, you have parent groups who don't necessarily understand school laws, contractual issues, and they're trying to make big changes without really knowing all of those things. And so if allowed to just kind of roam freely and do their thing, you may have issues where some of these laws are being affected as we move forward in the issue. In looking at what are some laws that do apply here, there's, first of all, as part of ESSA, which was No Child Left Behind, there is some laws involving parent engagement. Schools should have a written policy that describes how they're engaging families, and there should be meaningful consultation between families and the school system. So deciding if that's what was occurring here previously versus what the parents want right now may be an issue they have to work on. There's obviously SPED IEP laws when we talk about students who have disabilities in those IEPs and getting parental involvement in the educational decisions about those students. When their students are identified in those ways. Kansas right now has no laws about the roles of PTA or other parent organizations. My local school board looked into their policy, and one sentence, the quote is there: "The board shall seek to foster cooperation between the schools and community groups and organizations." So if this was my local school, there's really nothing saying what can and can't happen. It's just really what works best for the school. To take this situation and kind of synthesize it into one sentence, a new parent organization is attempting to become more involved in the school, while an administrator is happy with the status quo, creating potential conflict between school stakeholders. So I think that kind of takes some of this and brings it to that one sentence to describe exactly what's happening here in this situation. And we start looking at the facts of and both known and unknown facts. And I've tried to mark the unknown facts with an asterisk there. So known, we obviously know the principal and the leaders of the parent organization are involved. The unknown people involved in the situation would be teachers. Obviously, if we're going to talk about their time, them having to come in extra time, their evaluation, their discipline plans, they're a part of this without knowing it yet. School board, because we do have school policies to look into. And then students, obviously, when we talk about things at a school, we are affecting students, whether we think we are or not. The placing for this is, I believe, the secondary school. I made that inference because the parents have talked about teachers holding parent-teacher conferences or having sessions describing what's going on in their subject areas, and not having to be there if they weren't on their subject area, which makes me believe that they are divided by subject, which would make it secondary. The location is at the principal's office within the school for the meeting, and obviously there's a secondary location of the parent organization meeting when that was held. As far as programs affected, the parent-teacher organization, which used to be the PTA, is obviously a part of this, but I marked some ones that maybe are unknown but are affected here, like community relations, and keeping that bond between the community and the school district and school building. Teacher contracts, obviously an issue that is going to be affected by changing the amount of time teachers are working. Current school policies and communication. To dive into school policies just a little bit, most schools have student handbooks or teacher handbooks that have been board approved the previous year. So some of the things these parents are asking for may affect that. If you've got those handbooks that have been taken care of, we can't just go changing them based on a parent input and parent meeting that happens at the beginning of the school year. Communication, I talked about a little bit below some ways that schools can effectively communicate with parents: newsletters by building, classroom building, social media accounts, through email, creating stakeholder input groups, and then just having a working partnership with your parent organization, whether it's a PTA or another organization, making sure that's not one-sided, it's a true partnership. And then because we have students who don't necessarily always speak English, we want to make sure that communication is translated where it's possible to be. Now, looking at the information and trying to review it and really bring out some priorities, I want to pick out some things that really stick out. And by the way, words highlighted in red come from our standard for this assignment. So first thing, I do feel like it's extremely important to collaboratively engage the parent organization. That's just going to make the school more effective. Again, research shows students are achieved at a higher level when parents are engaged. Parents can be a great partnership. We do want to make sure that we're working with the parent organization. School improvement and student development are the most important things, though. It's all about the kids. So how do we build our school? How do we make sure that our students are developing? That's no matter what decisions we have to make them with those student glasses on. What's best for our students, and not make adult decisions, but make student decisions. Communication during this entire process should be ongoing and thorough. I put there, this includes concessions for non-English speaking families, so as communication can be translated, making sure that gets done. Thus far, teachers and district personnel, as far as the stakeholders involved here, they're out of the loop on this thus far. This all happened kind of behind the scenes, and the school district, in the form of the principal, are just now finding out what's happened here. So while they're out of the loop, this is going to be important to them, and they're going to need to know. So we need to make sure we keep the communication at all levels thorough. I feel like in this situation, we know enough to make some decisions about how we're going to move forward. We don't necessarily know enough to make a final decision right now. I'd be surprised if we could say, this is what we're doing, exactly how we're doing it. We need to have some more input and some more looking into this. But we can start making some decisions about how we're going to plan for that. So in looking at some possible options for what to do next, we talked about being able to move forward, so how we're going to do that. So thinking about 4 different options here. So option 1, do nothing. Ignore all the parent organization requests, just status quo, keep moving the way things are moving now. Option 2, the most liberal option, is to give in to all parent organization requests and do all that they've asked and try to move forward with that plan. Option 3 is trying to find some middle ground, a compromise between yourself, the school district, and the parent organization. And option 4, I believe, is to maintain the status quo for this year, but creating exploratory teams, including the parents or members of that parent organization, to look into possible changes going forward. So if we're looking at how are these things going to work, and are these methods going to be okay or problematic, we're looking at pros and cons for each one. So again, option 1, the do nothing option, just maintain the status quo. So the pros of this are it's simple for staff. It's what they've been doing, and to try to keep doing it the same way they have been doing it. And as the principal, you maintain complete control and are the authority for the building. The super obvious con here, is it's going to drastically fracture the relationship between your school, building, and the parent group. And that may be irreparable damage created there. Option 2, to give in to all requests. The pros, really one major pro there is that you're going to have very strong parent support. They're obviously bought into what you're doing there, since you're doing a lot of the things that they've recommended. The con, I feel like you lose control of your school. because the parents feel like they have too much. The opportunity for the parents to keep making demands. Once they figure out that the things that they're asking for you're going to do, they can start asking for more and more things. And parents don't necessarily know what's best for all the kids. It's difficult as a parent to not look at it just in what's best for your child, but really understanding what's best for the kids in general in the entire school. And then legally, issues with teacher contracts or school policies. In most situations, I believe, things like parent-teacher conferences are negotiated into a contract. And so in order to say we're just going to have conferences this day or an open house this day, those things usually have to be worked out contractually to make sure that teachers are available during those times. The third option, the compromise, a pro of that, you have the potential to maintain a relationship with both the parents and the staff, because hopefully both sides are getting something out of the deal and find that middle ground that they can hopefully find acceptable. The cons, this is going to disrupt some things with the parent organization if they feel like they don't have power to have their say. So it really depends on how things get worked out in that compromise, but it's the potential to hurt either side. A lot of times when you're picking a middle ground, nobody got exactly what they wanted, so people aren't necessarily happy. Option 4, the exploratory committees. The pro involves the families in the school's decisions. They have a meaningful involvement there. I feel like it's the best chance to make everyone happy because they can get their way or have say in what happens. And it really opens up two-way communication. So it's not schools communicating at the families. It's that two-way where they're getting communication back. The con there, when you have teams that have more different voices, it can sometimes be difficult to find answers because you have so many things that are coming out of those teams. Best option, I believe, is that option number 4. So I'm planning to enter into a planning year with the parent organization members, understanding that we're going to use those people, families, community on exploratory teams along with school personnel. And I'm thinking we'll involve district level staff, teachers, and others on those teams to really look into their issues and what things we can do moving forward to help everybody be happy with what's going on. We do want to make sure within these teams we clearly explain the contractual issues, school policy issues, anything else that might make immediate action difficult. So things that might have to be part of a negotiated agreement, or things that just involve changes that must go through a school board before they can happen, making sure we're really communicating those issues throughout the process as we work in this planning year. Hopefully this would be acceptable, that we could have this planning year while maintaining a lot of the things the same for the first year, to make sure that there's no major shifts and that we don't run into any legal issues. Throughout this entire process, we want to maintain very open lines of communication amongst all stakeholders so that we're being forthcoming. Nobody feels like their things are happening behind closed doors. Everybody knows it's an open process, and we're really trying to do what's best for our kids. In my reflection, and I'll just read through this, but in looking at this item, as a building leader, it actually makes your job easier if you're willing to include all stakeholders when you're making large decisions. So as I worked on this assignment, I can see that we need to determine at what points it'd be beneficial to put together exploratory teams or find other ways to get stakeholder input. It's not something you would need to do for every decision. Obviously, as a leader, you got to make decisions on your own. You're the final authority of the school. That all rests with school personnel, so with the principal, the superintendent, with the school board. That's where the final authority still rests. But if you gather feedback from stakeholders where it's appropriate, that can be very beneficial in making informed decisions that are best for hopefully your school, your district, and especially the kids within your school. Thank you.